It's a little strange for me to be up here looking like this. uh, but okay, you never give up, do you, Dale? In fact, it's Dale who's kind of respon- responsible um, for this in a way, in that COVID and everything else has kind of put a big dent in my doing this sort of thing. And then one day Dale said to me, as only Dale could do it, he said, "Chuck, now you need to know you look, how do you put this? You look younger now when you put the costume on." I think it was, Dale's way of, uh, letting me know a few things. But I have to take a couple minutes to reminisce a bit. It was 27 years ago that I drove over here to do Chesterton for the very first time. And I've been working on it for 2 or 3 years. I had a Fulbright teaching in Hungary in 1992, and a Benedictine nun from St. Scholastica came to visit. I had an aunt who was a nun there, and I'd known this nun, and she happened to be visiting. And what are you doing this summer? We were there for a calendar year, and we had a summer free to just do whatever, but not a lot of money to do a lot of touring. So my project was to turn this shoebox full of notes I had on Chesterton into a script. And she said, "Oh, well, do you know about the Midwest Chesterton Society?" "No." And she told me about the Midwest Chesterton Society, and I filed that away and continued to work on the script and memorize the script. And finally, I called not Dale, called John Peterson, and told him I got this one-man show together, and could I come and do it? And he said, "Well, we don't have any money for this kind of thing." And I said, "It's okay. I'm just looking for a place to do it." So off I drove. It was I'm driving over a nervous wreck, wondering what I've gotten myself into, listening to the radio, and there were updates on the impending death of Mickey Mantle. How I remember things like that, I don't know. But it got my mind off the script, and I did the show. And if I had known how much the people there knew about Chesterton, I would never have had the nerve to drive over and do it. But it was delightful. I would get to a famous line, and then I'd hear somebody whispering the rest of the line, and it became a running gag through the whole show. I'd get to a line, and I'd stop and wait for somebody to, and invariably somebody came up for the line. So I have been blessed by being able to do this all these years. I do some other characters as well, and if I can be a shameless self-promoter for a minute, I've got old-fashioned DVDs out there of a few other of my characters. Chesterton has long been my favorite to do, and it's been very humbling for me to do it, because I went to a Jesuit college long enough ago that it was a real Jesuit college, and yet there were no courses on Chesterton. I don't remember conversations about Chesterton. I didn't start reading him until I was probably around 40. And it's to meet young people reading him over the years has been very humbling. And I'm probably near the end of doing this at all. But I'm happy to have been able to do it all these years. And I would like to, apologize a little bit. Well, in two ways. I have a quote that I wanted to read, but I don't, without the costume on, I don't want to be Chesterton. I don't want to even do it with a quote, but I think it's so important that Chesterton be kept around for this reason. This is Belloc from the Great Heresies. "Either the Catholic Church, now rapidly becoming the only place wherein the traditions of civilization are understood and defended, will be reduced by her modern enemies to political impotence, to numerical insignificance, and so far as public appreciation goes, to silence. Or the Catholic Church will react more strongly against her enemies than her enemies have been able to react against her. She will recover and extend her authority and rise once more to the leadership of civilization which she made, and will thus recover and restore the world. Ooh, that's Belloc. And thank God we still have Chesterton on hand to help us. So next, I'm here to apologize to you for having been, for 27 years, an imposter. For traveling about pretending to be Mr. Chesterton. So I'm happy to, and greatly relieved, to be able to introduce to you tonight the real G.K. Chesterton, who will be here shortly.
Oh, I have forgotten. Thank you very much. I am amplified. It requires a button or something. How is that? Is that working? Indeed. I am amplified. I've never been amplified before. I have been told to be silent, but I have never told to be louder. George Bernard Shaw often accuses me of laughing too loud at the most inopportune moments of his theatrical productions. So I have been requested to be quiet. I have enjoyed my day. I hope all of you have. I went to Quick Trip. These lovely ladies in the back took me in my full regalia to Quick Trip. And it was indeed a quick trip. I ate something in a wrapper strangely resembling chicken. It was delicious. You are probably surprised to see me taking up this space, let alone so much space. However, I cannot deny the exuberant joy that I feel whenever I am touring this magnificent country of America. And I am very happy to be here in the state of Wisconsin, nestled near the metropolis of Milwaukee. I have traveled to the colonies before, and I have always found myself showered in hospitality. I find myself at home in places in New England. The names of the locales are familiar to me. New England, New York, Manchester, Tewksbury, Billerica, Plymouth, and so on. However, I find when I travel to the western territories of this vast expanse, I'm amazed and impressed by the creativity used in names. It seems as if the founding fathers found themselves out of names and began assembling letters in the alphabet with creative fervor. Names such as Tex, Ok, Anna, Dallas, Utah, this is quite confusing. Nagado, Gesundheit. And also one of my favorite, Albuquerque. However, the name is secondary to the character of the people of this land. And in this particular hamlet, I have found the most generous of hearts and enthusiastic hospitality that I have yet to experience for some time, and I thank you for that. I am speaking of good company. I want to specifically thank Chuck Charlberg for that wonderful introduction. Thank you very much for your kind and a cordial greeting. It's as if he has been introducing me to others for so many years. Indeed, he is another version of me, one who has paved a road by sweat and tear and passion that I now follow down with respect, admiration, and gratitude in the shadow of the great man. That's very good. I'd also like to offer a sincere thanks to one Dale Alquist, who has been my dear friend and supporter and comrade in arms for so long a time. Once again, he has provided me with a stage where my humble but rather large personage will be able to address some of the issues that I hold close to my heart to a satiated audience who may require less Chesterton than cheese in their diet. You might say, as in the medieval monastery that cleared the ground to make it fertile to grow, the Dale Alquist has created a fertile field where seeds may sprout and intelligence and strenuous thinking may prosper and grow throughout the land. And many have been able to build their homes on that. And in a small shed behind Mr. Charlberg's house, I can exist. I have been asked to speak to you tonight regarding the topic of conversion, specifically my own conversion. This may result in a wandering monologue of connected and unconnected topics. As my pilgrim's journey to the Catholic Church, it took many roads, paths, and obscure woodland trails. It is a paradox, to be sure. I have been accused of speaking in paradox, and it is a justified accusation. Paradox is, after all, at the foundation of affairs of human men, especially our faith. And a convert lives in a state of paradox. He is two things at the same time. He is human in all of his brokenness, and at the same time, he is connected to the divine. Almost every convert will recognize there are three stages of conversion. The first stage is patronizing the church. The second, discovering the church. And the third, running away from the church. I tried to run away from the church. I can't. The church has a decided advantage. However, I can roll with great speed on a downhill grade. as I am spherical in nature. The convert's first step he takes rather unwittingly when he decides that he is going to be fair to the Catholic Church. He does not think the Roman religious is true, but for the time he also doesn't think the accusations against the Church are true. The moment a man ceases to pull against a thing, he feels the tug towards it. The moment he ceases to shout it down, he begins to listen to it with pleasure. The moment he tries to be fair, he begins to be fond of it. And once this perilous chasm has been crossed, he realizes that to understand the pull of a thing, you must understand the truth of a thing. The desire for understanding leads to the second stage, discovering the Church, which is the utter fascinating learning of the Catholic Church and its teachings. This is indeed the most pleasant part of the business. Much easier than joining the Catholic Church, and certainly far more easier than trying to live a Catholic life. It is a glorious, slow, plodding phase from one exploration to an entrancing discovery to another. It is as if you are discovering a new continent, full of flourishing, fantastical flowers and wonderful wild beasts that is both hospitable and wild at the same time. But then comes the next stage, running away from the Church. It's one thing to conclude that Catholicism is good. It is another to conclude that it is right. It is one thing to conclude that it is right, and another to conclude that it is always right. At this delicate last stage, it is no longer the Church's enemies that can keep back the convert, but the word of a Catholic that can keep him from Catholicism. But just going to church does not make you a Christian any more than standing in your garage makes you a car. One must commit to the arduous task at working at a thing. And one must love a thing very much if he practices at it without any hope of fame or money, but even practices it without any hope of doing it well. Man must love the toils of the work more than another loves the rewards. The journey of a convert reminds me of a story I've longed to write about the Englishman who discovers England. I fancy him an English yachtsman who on his first day at sea gets turned around on his course and returns back to England thinking it is a new island in the South Seas. No doubt, the man who came ashore armed to the teeth, talking in signs, carrying the British flag to plant on that barbaric temple that later turned out to be the pavilion at Brighton, thought himself the fool. But he is the hero of this tale. For what could be more delightful than in the same few minutes all the fascinating terrors of going abroad, combined with all the humane security of coming home again? A single moment when one is astonished at the world and yet at home in it. The object of travel, you know, is not to set one's foot in a foreign land, but to set one's foot in one's own country as if it were a foreign land. That is a convert's journey, to see the world anew, to embrace this strange new hospitality. And once you embrace that hospitality, you enter into the Catholic Church to find out that it is bigger on the inside than on the outside. And there you will kneel at the altar and regard the divine beauty which arrests you, transforms you, and sends you on your mission. You would have to excuse me for my profuse sweating. But as if getting into hot water is enough to clean the body, sweating profusely is enough to wash the face several times. Nothing in my years, aside from my wedding, has given me so much joy, so much freedom of space than what I have experienced since coming into the Catholic Church. It is the one single act in my life, aside from my wedding, which I have certainly not regretted. To quote a friend of mine, Hilaire Belloc, we have many interesting stories about him. I will save for another time. Here, he says, "Every day I live, the church seems to me more and more wonderful. The sacraments more and more solemn. The liturgy more sustaining. Her decisions of matters of faith and morals more and more excellent and profoundly wise, true, and right. There I have found truth and reality, and everything outside her, to me, compared with her, is dust." People have naturally confused the remarks of a convert about having found moral peace to display some sort of level of mental inaction. To become a Catholic is not to leave off thinking. To become a Catholic is to learn how to think. The Catholic convert for the first time has a straight course to strenuous thinking. He begins to meditate, reflect, consider, and even to see with the eyes of imagination. The imagination is like a set of spectacles, very unique, whose glass and lens is cut in such an exact science that it allows you to see with a stereoptic vision, two worlds at the same time. It allows you to see that which is incomprehensible to the human eye. And there it begins to teach you how to see and believe, and then to believe without seeing. And there begins the first steps of faith. It is truth that I am discussing now. If you've ever taken a prism, the glass cut in several angles, and you hold it up to a candle and look through it, directly through it, you will see the candle in all of its form and shape, exactly as it is, color, hue. But if you tilt your head a little to one side, the view of the candle will become transformed, the shape distorted, the color changed, and if you move to the other side again, you will see that the candle is not the same. The Catholic Church is seeing directly through the prism to truth, to the candle or to the red sanctuary lamp in the church. The difficulty of explaining why I am a Catholic is that there are 10,000 reasons, all amounting to one reason, and that is that Catholicism is true. I simply say the Catholic Church is a guardian place of truth. It is not a meeting place or a movement. It is a trysting place of all the truths in the world. I've already seemed to go off track a bit. On July 30th, 1922, in a shed connected to the railway hotel in Beaconsfield, I came into the church. In attendance was my wife, Frances, the Right Reverend Monsignor John O'Connor, and assisted by Dom Ignatius Rice. You could safely say we filled the space. One more guest would have required a shoehorn. Father Rice he was a Benedictine monk and headmaster of the Abbey School. We met at Queen's College when his order sent him to take a degree. He attended a lecture of mine of sorts. I don't know if I can use that word lecture now that you've heard me speak. But he was there on that day, and although my lecture may have induced a stupefying coma that took several days for him to awake from and gather his senses, he became friends with Father O'Connor. And one day he wrote Father O'Connor and told him that I had saved him from being an intellectual and utter ass. So the old adage is true. It takes one to know one. We were together on that great day. I believe Father Rice and Father O'Connor, being well aware of the monumental task of bringing me, a mountain of a man, into the church, would require monumental work. And so they ate a fortified breakfast at the inn before they began their march up the hill to Top Meadow. When they arrived, I was in my armchair, making noises. And faces. As I want to do when I am reading. Upon seeing them, I looked at the catechism one last time, like a general overlooking a battlefield map, and closed it and shoved it in my pocket and stood. We went in and had lunch. I drank water, and I served wine to everybody else. And then we began the long, slow, serious, and dignified, solemn procession into town. On the way there, Father O'Connor asked me if I'd remembered the ritual. I plunged my hand in my pocket and lifted a 3-penny shocker. Varney the Vampire. It's very good, though. I put it back. Without embarrassment, I reached into my pocket again and I pulled out the prayer book. I was prepared. In the town of Beaconsfield, I should explain, it had no Catholic church. So we were connected to the railway system in our shed. It seemed evident and fortuitously fitting for me to come into the church connected to a railway station. A place that I have been so fond of my entire life. I was, after all, switching tracks, you could say. From one ambling main line and transferring onto a train that under a full head of steam would send me hurtling to a new land of wider horizons and greater knowledge. An express train of the soul. So to me, a railway seemed to be the perfect place to suit my purposes, if not with a bit of irony. So underneath the corrugated tin roof and bare wooden walls, I was received into the Catholic Church. I handed over my ticket for a new train that would take me on the journey of my life. A few years later, the journey was so compelling that I dragged my wife along with me. My dear beloved wife. I feared it was difficult for her to watch me in my state of unrest, pacing about the house, and talking to myself, slamming doors, during the week leading up to the event. And as I fear it was also difficult for her on the day of the event. I understand that it took one drink at least at the railway hotel bar with Father Rice for Frances to calm herself. But once she understood that this is what I needed to do, what I wanted to do, she was able to support me. And I feel a glow of pride that she was able to, despite her trepidations and fears, support me in this epic adventure. I think my talk might have gone on a bit, different directions and sorts. Perhaps I may be able to summarize everything by reading a poem that I wrote, if that wouldn't offend anyone. It's The Convert. I'll attempt to read that now for you. The Convert, by me. After one moment, when I bowed my head, and the whole world turned over and came upright, and I came out where the old road shone white, I walked the ways and heard what all men said, forests of tongues like autumn leaves unshed, being not unlovable, but strange and light, old riddles and new creeds, not in despite, but softly, as men smile about the dead. The sages have 100 maps to give that trace their crawling cosmos like a tree. They rattle reason out through many a sieve that stores the sand and lets the gold go free. And all of these things are less than dust to me, because my name is Lazarus, and I live. Well, I do believe that brings me to the end of this long wandering tale of my conversion, almost long as it took the wandering trip to get me into the church. Well, I hope you have enjoyed our time together. I would like to see you again. That is not a threat. And I appreciate the amount of sore limbs and back pain you have endured sitting here listening to me. I'm sure you have aged accordingly. And I thank you for that generous sacrifice of your bones and blood, and mostly for your hospitality. I will maintain that thanks are the highest form of praise and the highest form of thought. And so, with many thanks, I wish you well. I bid you adieu. Tally ho, carry on.